Okay, looking at the last section for this one, don't forget, please read the documents that we provided you. All right, now basically, how do we pump the water out of the well? How do we get the groundwater out? And what are some of the problems that threaten our water supply? Okay, now the well, the drawdown, recharge, and an artesian well are the four things that we're going to primarily discuss. Most of these are pretty straightforward. There's nothing really fancy about it. Now, our wells are you dig a hole, it fills up with water. You drill a hole, it fills up with water. Big thing for us around this area is you'll hear a lot of your parents, people say, you want to hit the water table. Well, that's what we call the aquifer. Most of West Virginia is a well system. Part of it is we have an abundant levels of aquifers, and we have quite a bit of recharge, which means we get a lot of rain that puts more water back into the system. Now, when we take a look at a normal well, we have different things going on here. Now, the simplest wells are dug or drilled, and then around here we normally drill them. We get them down to the water table. We've got a couple of things going on here with our different wells. You'll notice how each one of them is at a different depth. Well, that means you could conceivably get it if that water table is not recharged on a regular basis and we take out too much, the only wells that will pump are the ones that are the deepest. And we'll notice that is true. You'll have your sister, cousin, neighbor, or whoever that lives just up the road from you, and you're both drawing off the same water level. And they go, my water's out. It says, well, ours isn't yet. Let's see. And you'll see it happen a little bit later. Now, artesian wells is ones that normally don't require a pump to get the water to come out. What that normally means is that the water table is actually curved up a slope, which is providing a pressure to lift the water up. Couple of rules, and then you can try this at the house. You get a long tube and put water in it, and if you hold one end to the other, water always wants to reach the level at which it's at. So if the highest point for the well is the highest water point, then that means that's the highest point that the water will achieve. So if you build a well down here, it's going to have a lot more pressure pushing up. The fountain, we call that the artesian well. Okay, so that's some of that. I shouldn't have done that one. Let's go back and fix that real quick. So we've got a bunch of problems that we deal with as far as pollution and such. When the water table gets drawn down, things get concentrated in it. That increases the chance of pollution. Now, groundwater is pumped out at a rate than the rate at which the water seeps into it. The water table will decrease, and that will cause a subsidence or a sinking of the land. A sinkhole sometimes will form. Now, all kinds of different things can create pollution. The big thing is tracking the pollution and finding where it's at. We've had the discussion in class about, hey, there's a big white pipe sticking out in the creek. I wonder what comes out of it. And that's the question we ask ourselves. What comes out of that, and what could it have been? Somebody left an old battery sitting at the edge of the creek and forgot all about it after they were working on something. Then it breaks down and starts leaking. That's a point contamination. Okay. So when we look at this, we look at point contaminations that travel through the system. The septic tank that leaks. Okay. You've got a garage where you repair cars all the time, and you've got a tank that holds the old oil. It springs a leak. All kinds of different things like that can happen. Now, and that will go straight into our aquifer, and that will go straight into our aquifer, get absorbed into that area. And then it's going to take a long time to get it pumped out. A lot of it will still hang around in that sandish area and stuff. It's going to be really hard to remove. It's going to percolate into there, and the problem is it can get concentrated. And what do we do for certain things? Salt pollution is one of the big things that we deal with, especially in the coastal areas, which our salt water seeps into. If you draw out too much fresh water too fast, salt water will migrate into the system and fill up the system with salt water. So that's kind of bad. Now, radon gas is another one. And another source of groundwater pollution is radon gas. And we'll get that in our houses too. If we dig down too far and we don't seal up the block on our houses, we can get that into our house too. Now, one of the things that we talk about is fertilizer, storage tanks leak, acid from mines, septic tanks, salt water, garbage pits. I'm sure there's several of us out in Lincoln County and other places that have the burn pile where we take garbage out and we set it on fire and we burn it. And that's one of the things that we have to deal with. And then radon gas. So that's just a quick summary of this last section.